about improving the environment, making it better for both our citizens now and all generations to come.
So there's been a motion to delay. Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Chair Goodman, Chair Gordon, and committee members for giving me the opportunity to be here with you today. And also thank you to all the people who participated, the Bag Monster and everybody else who took their time to come here and give us information. I'm one of the authors of this ordinance, and I would like to thank my co-author, Cam Gordon, and his office for the hard work they've done on this issue. And I wanted to just talk about one thing, which is, since the last week, I've been studying more on this. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an environmental scientist. And I have actually come to terms, and actually I am supportive of the fee. Because one of the issues that even Councilmember Johnson mentioned was the fact that we're moving from plastic to paper, and we're making choice. And this is not what this ordinance is about. This ordinance is about bringing your own bag in order to reduce litter, in order to reduce waste, and to change behavior. And human behavior has the largest impact on the environment. The reason why we have global warming is because everybody wants to drive a car, and we use fossil fuel too much. This is human behavior. And changing this behavior, I think, would go a long way to addressing some of the issues that we have. And also, one of the most important things about this ordinance is, one, it took a long time to put this together. It took a long time, and Councilmember Cam Gordon has been working on this for a long time. We've been going back and forth about this particular issue. And I think this is, a step in the right direction. It's not a panacea. It's not going to solve all the problems that we're facing, but it's a step in the right direction, because we wouldn't be having this discussion right now if this ordinance wasn't in front of this committee. So I think this is the right step. I think we shouldn't delay this, because we have a long time before implementation. We have like a whole year before this is implemented. So of course we're going to get more information. Of course we're going to look at the implementation of it, who's going to implement it, what the cost will be. And all of these things will be discussed throughout this period of time. But I think delaying it sends a wrong message. What it does is it just puts it back. And if you want to kill something in the council, you delay the cycle. And this is what we've learned. So I think we should take our time, be deliberate. But I have evolved on the cost, and I support the 5 cents, and I support the fact that we should take responsibility for the environment. I think people are saying we shouldn't legislate, we shouldn't bring these ordinances, people should do what they want. But we as individuals should take responsibility for our own actions. And so that's what I wanted to mention. And, I think, and I thank my colleagues, and I want them to support this on this committee, because I'm not a member of this committee, so all I can do is just make a suggestion. So just like the Bag Monster, please support this. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and I wasn't sure if you were suggesting we amended to take the credit out or not.
I'm fine with keeping the credit. I'm fine, but I think the 5 cents charging for the paper bag is an important step. And the expert told us this as well. So.
Thank you. And Councilmember Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to hear that Councilmember Warsame is in favor of that fee, because then I think we could strike the bag credit here, which ultimately creates the loophole. I just want to clarify too, earlier what I said was that when I said paper consumption would increase, the way that this is written now is that retailers can freely give out paper bags and avoid implementing a 5 cent fee by having a credit for reusable bags. A lot of places do that already. Good example is Lund's. I know they do that. So it's not going to change behavior. People are just going to, those who are already going there, their behavior would have been changed if that credit, if they saw that credit already. And if they go there after this changes, there's essentially no impact to them other than that they don't have plastic bags as an option. I'm sure they'll probably end up getting biodegradable plastic bags, which is great. But, for those that prefer paper, they're not going to reduce their consumption at all. And in fact, I think a lot of people may just end up switching over to paper if there's any sort of delay too, in terms of how quickly plastic is rolled out, or biodegradable plastic. So, and then the other piece too, this idea that we would pass something now and then turn around a few weeks later and modify it again. I've never seen that happen, period. And I've never seen us pass essentially a half measure or an incomplete piece that's missing something. That just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we have these committee structures for a reason, to take the time to work out the language, to make sure it's well-rounded. And the very fact that we're even going to potentially move this forward today, missing even a piece about reporting an evaluation of how successful this is, when it's a basic recommendation from the MPCA, I would be surprised. And I don't think that that's the appropriate thing to do. So I hope that we do take the time to get in, get this right.
So I just wanted to speak briefly to the idea of studying and let my colleagues know that I'm also moving a staff direction today, or tend to move staff direction. It's not a surprise. It was in the staff report and everybody saw about it, that we're going to study, we're going to ask our staff to report back at the beginning of next year with recommendations for implementation and enforcement. And after hearing the testimony today, I think we'll add plans for how we can implement a study. So that study part I intend to incorporate today, that will direct staff to work on that as well, just to address that. But really what we're trying to figure out now is if we want to continue this one cycle or not. And Councilmember Bender, did you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and then I have a couple of questions, I think. So my understanding of the proposal, I just want to clarify and make sure that I can understand the reasoning of the authors. Instead of doing an all-out ban, which is one option, we could just say no more plastic bags ever in Minneapolis. You've crafted a proposal that has a way for people to buy bags, basically, if they would like. So if they want to buy a paper bag, they can. You can't just give out bags. You have to charge people 5 cents per paper bag.
Or more. But.
And if you would like to give people credit back for the bags that they bring, then an operator can give someone a 10-cent discount on their purchase. And then we have several exemptions for different kinds of plastic bags that operators can still provide. And Councilmember Johnson is saying he does not agree with my assessment, so I'm happy to be corrected.
So the 10 cent, it's not just a 10-cent credit on your purchase, it's a 10 cents off for every reusable bag, every bag of your own that you bring in to use again. So however many bags, it could be 20 or 30 or 40 cents. So, we also, we won't, I'm not sure the way you were talking about it, the non-compostable plastic bags you cannot sell for a nickel, but you can either sell a paper bag or a fully certified compostable plastic bag.
But there's a pretty significant list of exemptions. Just to be clear, so including all takeout food establishments can still use paper plastic bags, which to me it seems like a pretty significant exemption, and I would trust the authors that you've come to this thoughtfully, but I just wanted to acknowledge that there's actually many types of plastic bags that are still available given the ordinance. So thank you for clarifying. I don't want to misstate, but we have several exemptions for plastic bags that are still available. We have a 5-cent charge minimum for each paper bag that would be given, and then you can get a credit back. So we're creating incentive for people to bring their own bags. We're charging people for paper bags, and we are mostly banning plastic bags with what I would consider a significant number of exceptions to that, which still allow plastic bags to be used in the ways that the authors felt were appropriate.
Correct. We're also prohibiting the free distribution of other reusable types of bags, so you have to charge for those. So let's say a store has canvas bags, they can't just give them away, or they have these super thick plastic bags that are reusable, they can't give those away either. But, and do you have any feeling on the continuing this?
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be willing to support a vote on this today. I think that there have been a lot of thoughtful engagement opportunities. I know that the authors checked with me several times. The objections that are being raised remind me actually of the styrofoam conversation that we had, and some of the debates were hard to track there as well as here, where we have competing evidence. But after the presentation from the folks from the PCA and the presentation from the authors, I feel comfortable supporting this today. So that's where I'm at with this proposal.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to provide clarification on this because that's not the way I'm reading the way the ordinance is written. It says that no retail establishment shall provide a paper or carry-out bag that's not recyclable, and they will shall collect a pass-through charge of not less than 5 cents for each paper bag or compostable carry-out bag or reusable bag, or they may provide customers a credit of not less than 10 cents per reusable bag customers use. So it sounds like they can either charge 5 cents for a paper bag, for instance, or they can offer a 10-cent credit to customers just generally. But that if you come in, if I come into a facility that, establishment that does have a credit program, that I would have the option of essentially getting a free paper bag. And that was my understanding talking with you and others. But maybe that's wrong. Maybe I am wrong with that. And the way that this is written is that you as a customer either have to pay 5 cents or have to bring a reusable bag in, and then in which case you get a 10-cent credit. Is that the way that this, because I read it and it reads like an establishment either has to charge 5 cents or they have to have a 10-cent credit program, period.
Correct. So your original interpretation, and I believe that Councilmember Bender also shared that interpretation, are consistent with, I think, the intent of the authors.
So they could give
your store decides whether you're going to sell the bags or do the credit, and that's the program that they provide. And if you're doing the credit for the reusable bags, then you don't have to do the charge
for paper bags. You can give them out for free. Gotcha.
Yes. That's what people have called the loophole.
Yeah.
Councilmember Warsaw.
Thank you, Chair Gordon. Just to reply to the point that Councilmember Johnson made, you're not going to get a free paper bag. You're not going to get a free paper bag. Either if you bring in your own bag, you get a 10 cents credit. If you bring in your own bag, you get a 10 cents credit. If you want to purchase a paper bag, you have to pay 5 cents. So you don't get a free paper bag in any circumstance. You bring in your own bag, I have my own bag, I get a 10 cents credit for bringing my own bag.
Well, we could ask the attorney how he interprets the language, because I think there's a little bit of a different interpretation. So I think that Councilmember Johnson would favor your interpretation, it sounds like, and I'm fine with it too.
That's fine. That's how I interpret it.
But it talks about the retail establishment shall provide. Mr. Fussy, do you have a way of, and do you understand the paragraph we're talking about?
I do, and thank you, Mr. Chair. The way that I understood the intent of that, I guess, amendment to your draft was the way that Councilmember Johnson phrased it. And I think if that's not the intent, we should do some additional work to make that clear. But certainly my understanding of that language is that if the store has the 10 cent or more credit program, they can give away the paper bags.
Right. So, So do you have an amendment you could offer us on the fly here?
Well, Mr. Chair, I guess that would depend on what the intent of the council.
To align it with Councilmember Warsami's intent.
I could work on.
Why don't you look at that too? Well, otherwise we can certainly work on that before the council meeting. I think I wouldn't mind voting on the continuance or not, although my preference, I'll speak to that, I think is just to pass it today. I think one of the things by continuing it could create confusion in what actually got done and whether or not we were supporting it. And I think that the intention of the committee is pretty much unanimous that we need to do something here right along the lines of banning the use of plastic bags and creating some kind of a fee. It sounds like actually a fee structure for paper bags. And so I think the general premise of the ordinance is supported by the committee, and I'd like to move it forward for recommendation and not hold it up for 2 weeks, because I think that might give the wrong message to some of our folks in the community about what they have to do. So I'd like to see it go to the council on April 1st. That's my preference. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps a friendly amendment to Councilmember Johnson's motion would be to rather than delay a full cycle, see what we could get done in the interim between now and the full city council meeting. And if by the full city council meeting there's not the proper amendments that have taken place, and to your point, we haven't fully dealt with the issue of the upstream costs associated with paper, then there would be the delay.
Certainly, and I would certainly be, and if we got to the council meeting, I'd certainly support holding it over if we hadn't resolved the language by then. Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that's a good point. Councilmember Fry, I'm happy to withdraw the motion to hold it over for a council cycle. In the meantime, I absolutely will be working on this. One of the things, too, that I've floated as an idea was actually a way to utilize these fees to fund litter cleanup in the city and to ultimately make it less burdensome for consumers in the process. I can share the details with colleagues as I try to build support for this, but I just think about our MPCA example. If this is only 2% of the litter that's out there, what about the other 98%? We should have a vision for tackling that if we're ultimately going to be a zero waste city and as clean and green as we can be.
Okay, then why don't we just vote on the motion to continue it anyway? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? No.
Nay.
Okay, we won't continue it. And now let's see if there's any amendments that we want to attempt to make. I don't know, Mr. Fussy, if you have a good solution.
Well, Mr. Chair, it seems to me that if there's no consideration for the retailers giving the 10-cent per reusable bag credit. They could certainly do that of their own volition. And so I think to achieve the intent that you were speaking of, you just strike the language or provide customers a credit of not less than 10 cents per reusable bag customers use. I just don't believe that there's anything that retailers receive for that requirement under or that option under your intent. And there certainly would be free to continue with a credit program if they so choose. But if I'm understanding the intent of the committee and the chair, I don't think there's any reason to have that language in there. There's nothing that they achieve by offering that credit program under the ordinance.
So I will go ahead and make that motion and see where the sense of the group is. I'm not sure if I think that might be where we are now, where we're more moving in the direction of the straight fee. Councilmember, on that motion, Councilmember Fry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess 2 points. If we wanted to separate the subject of the first sentence from the predicate of the second, we could just make it into 2 sentences. So it would be after compostable carryout bag or reusable bag provided to customers, period. And then we could say, additionally, vendors have the option of providing a 10-cent credit. Now, that's the way it would be worded if that was something you actually supported, and I don't know that that's something I support at all, given that I don't want a major influx of quote-unquote reusable polypropylene bags to enter the market stream.
So I'm worried that what you said would also leave it too confusing. If additionally they could, I suppose you said additionally they could.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I was providing an example of what we could do if that was the result that we intended, but I think that would ultimately be a bad result.
Oh, let's not. I don't. Just for those of you, I'm very comfortable if we just stay with the fee and we take that off, and then we can let the stores do their own. I think that was an idea where we were reaching out to some stores that were already doing an incentive program, that they wouldn't have to change their way of operating business. So for the co-ops and for the Whole Foods, they're going to have to rethink it and move more in the direction of the Aldis, that here's a clear way of buying the bag and paying for the bag. So it will be a change and a transition, but we heard from the MPCA and a lot of people, they were concerned about it. So I'm fine striking that language. I don't know if Councilmember Mike, okay. So any other discussion on that? All those in favor then of the motion to remove the phrase or provide customers a credit of not less than 10 cents.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I don't know if that's been moved, and I certainly am unable to move.
No, as you were finishing, I said I would move that, and I did. And right? Yes, thank you. Clerk agrees. So as I had moved to strike that, and I think we all know what it is, but it's or provide customers a credit of not less than 10 cents per reusable bag. It's in section 225.930. Any further discussion on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then on the entire motion, any other amendments or comments? Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if the authors would indulge me with explaining why we're exempting carry-out food bags. I know when I've gone through the McDonald's before, not that I eat there often, but they've now started putting them in paper bags. They're extremely thin paper bags, and I wouldn't see why, if we're allowing reusable plastic, or not reusable plastic, biodegradable plastic, if that couldn't just be used in place for retailers. Is it an economics issue? Is it a cost issue? Is it a food or health safety issue? Is there a reason why that exemption is provided?
Well, it's provided if there's a food health safety issue. I think, speaking for myself anyway, I can't speak for my colleague on this, but maybe he shares this view. This is something that came up in a lot of discussions. It's also something that other cities have done. There was also the sense that this would really help some of the businesses, and it was a way we could phase in the adjustment if we saw that we wanted to look at this next time. I actually, at a lot of the business meetings, that seemed to be the biggest concern, that it seemed too challenging and too difficult for those takeout food operators. And I will tell you that they referred over and over again to a previous ordinance that you authored, is that saying we just got hit with that other one about our takeout food, and now I'm dealing with this cardboard stuff that's soaking in all the moisture, and I don't want to have to then have to come up with another plan when I haven't even really solved the first one. Could you just please, probably they want it forever, but some of them, could you please put this on the exempt list for, for us now? And it made a lot of people feel more comfortable. And the same thing happened with launders and dry cleaning too. I'll have to tell you that they were concerned about it. So some of those exemptions were in there. It almost felt like as part of a community-wide negotiation. And I will also tell you that at some of those meetings, some of the other businesses said, but you're going to get to the takeout bags eventually, right? We're going to have to deal with that. And so did residents. And I think they see that. But those exemptions we're kind of trying to listen to people and be a little more sensitive, even though I know a lot of you here think this is ruthless government being not sensitive to your needs at all, and I apologize for that, but we're trying to move us in the right direction. And so keeping that exemption seems to be a way to do it a little more gently to some of the businesses. So I don't know, do you want to add anything to that, Councilmember Warsami? So I'd probably vote against that amendment if you wanted to make it at this point, but that's something we can certainly look at maybe later. Any other amendments or comments? Then I think we're ready to vote on the whole motion. The ordinance as amended. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Abstentions? One abstention. Okay, one abstention. And so that motion carries. And now I'd like to move to the staff direction. And you should have it in front of you. I'll read the staff direction, and I want to put the words, I think just the word study in there, and we can see if we should fix that. But the staff direction says, directing solid waste and recycling, licenses and community services, regulatory services, and health staff to report back to the HECE committee no later than January 31st, 2017, with recommendations for study, implementation and enforcement of the Bring Your Own Bag ordinance. Such recommendations shall reflect the overall strategies laid out in the Zero Waste Policy Plan. So that's the staff direction, hoping adding the word study at the beginning will be clear enough, and everybody who listened to the discussion to work on it. Any discussion on the staff direction? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. That motion carries. And then I think we're actually done with this item. It took a little longer than I thought. I appreciate everybody's patience, and especially the patience of those other staff who are here for item number 2. And I think we'll take item number 2, and then we'll take item number 3, and hopefully it won't take too long, but we'll see how many people are here for this public hearing. So is Mr. Huff and Mr. Hanlon and Mr. Frame. Get all three of you. Welcome, and take a minute to get set up. We could probably stand up now and stretch a little committee members, what do you think? Have we ever done that at a council meeting? You got to get out of there soon? Okay. Well, hopefully we'll hold on to quorum. All right.
Mr. Chair and committee members, thank you. My name is Dan Huff, and I am the Director of Environmental Health with the Minneapolis Health Department. Today we're talking about pollution control annual bill fee restructure. I don't know why everyone laughed. It's a fee restructure. It's the most exciting thing yet. First of all, what is this fee? This is the pollution control annual registration, formerly known as the annual bill. This is a pollution impact fee. It's charged to a number of businesses, organizations, large housing units within the city. And what it does is it pays for the environmental services unit of the health department to follow up on complaints, to do investigations, and also to do proactive work with our businesses. So why the change? This is part of a citywide fee restructure effort. Council Vice President Glidden had asked us to reevaluate our fees a number of years ago in a comprehensive fee study. It's taken a lot of work, but this is part of that effort. It's also part of the mayor's effort on Business Made Simple. How do we ensure that our fees make the most sense for our businesses? So we really have three things that we feel are good outcomes from this. Number one is it aligns our fees to the services that we provide much more equitably. It also helps to incentivize pollution reduction while disincentivizing outdated practices that are most always more polluting practices. And the final thing, and this is one of the most significant changes here, is that it aligns the fees to the pollution impact, as opposed to having just a broad fee charged for, say, equipment. We're actually going to be charging for the amount of air pollution that large emitters release within the city. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Tom Frame, our environmental engineer.
Good afternoon.
Chair Gordon and committee members, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Thomas Frame. I've been an employee with the City of Minneapolis Environmental Programs for over 20 years. I've been an inspector, a supervisor, and now an environmental engineer. I am a licensed professional engineer with the state of Minnesota. What you have before you today, you're looking at the hydrologic cycle. It illustrates how land, air, and water systems are interconnected. The latter, the last one, water, is what I will talk briefly about with you today. Some of you may have heard from your constituents about an item called a sanitary sewer discharge registration. It is a registration required for all non-residential users of the Minneapolis sewer system. Presently, there are 4,900 registrations. As a result of extensive work by the city, and in particular our Public Works Department, in the separation of sanitary sewers and storm drains, elimination of clear water connections, and combined sewer overflows, a large portion of the registration for domestic discharge connections is no longer relevant and will be eliminated. The outcome of this is that 3,976 businesses will no longer have the sanitary sewer registration. This will be the cafes, grocery stores, restaurants, retail storefronts on Central Avenue, on Lake Street, on Hennepin Avenue. We have a picture of wells and groundwater protection. When not maintained or properly constructed, wells are a conduit for surface water and soil contamination to enter the aquifers. Through 2 state delegated programs, Environmental Services is working to ensure that groundwater is safe to drink, that out-of-service wells and unsafe wells are sealed, that groundwater is available for commercial use, and that all wells do not impede redevelopment. The changes we are requesting will update the program to more accurately identify out-of-service wells and use commercial and water supply wells and create an inventory of wells that have received a sealing variance. Having this information readily available will provide opportunities to take advantage of cost share and grant programs that are occurring throughout the state. This will allow us the opportunity to seal up these at-risk wells as the money becomes available. Surface water protection. Stormwater runoff goes directly from the curb via the storm drains to the river, our lakes, and local creeks. In a continuing effort to improve the water quality of the stormwater runoff entering these surface water bodies, a registration for commercial and industrial stormwater runoff is being required. The new registration will facilitate implementation of the City of Minneapolis MPDS, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, municipal stormwater permit issued by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. A no exposure exclusion for a fee exemption will be in place for those facilities that have implemented programs and practices that have eliminated the impact from their operations to the stormwater runoff leaving their sites and entering the Minneapolis storm drain system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hanlon, get to hear about air now.
Chair Gordon, council members, my name is Patrick Hanlon. I'm the Environmental Initiatives Manager for the Environmental Services Unit in the Health Department. Tom was talking a little bit about water quality and how the ordinance changes affect water quality and the services we provide there. I'll talk a little bit about air quality. And the first change that we have is fees for unhealthy business practices. There will be a $600 fee for dry cleaning and high emitting paint booths. So paint booths that aren't using waterborne paint, using high levels of solvents. And the example with dry cleaning that I would use is I was up here over a month ago, probably now, talking about our neighborhood air quality study that we did over a 2-year period. And PERC that's used in dry cleaning, we found there were 99 exceedances over health risk values across the city. And of those 99 health exceedances, we found 27 hits outside of a dry cleaner. And we found 1,000 micrograms per cubic meter outside that dry cleaner when the health risk value is 2 micrograms per cubic meter. So that's outdoor air quality. Dry cleaners definitely have effect on our outdoor air quality, and PERC that's across the city, that we're finding across the city. In indoor air quality, we found that the dry cleaners that we work with to remove their PERC equipment, when they change that PERC equipment out, it dramatically improves the air quality inside the business and improves air quality for eliminating worker exposure to these chemicals. I'll talk a little bit about fees based on air pollution, but first I wanted to start with some research that's been done around air pollution and why the justification for a city like ourselves to be charging an air pollution fee. Experts agree that the cost of pollution in terms of human health and environmental concern is higher than what we currently charge. Any charges that we have in the state or federal charges or anything that a business might receive doesn't cover the charges, doesn't cover the costs, the environmental costs and the human health costs the externality costs that we receive. So that first item talks about those externality costs. It's a study that was done on a theoretical power plant built in Hennepin County. And there's 2 experts, one from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, Dr. Nick Muller, and then from the University of Minnesota, Dr. Julian Marshall. And they used their own scientific modeling to assess what the costs of one power plant would be. And based on different levels of pollution, came up with costs. And those costs are much more than what businesses are currently charged in terms of fees. And they're analyzing, in that chart, they're analyzing fine particulates, sulfur dioxide, and nitrogen oxides. The second one is pollution is not equal. If you look at externality costs of pollution, it can be 7 times. Research shows that it's 7 times higher in an urban area versus a rural area. And that makes sense. We live in a city where more people live close together. We have sources of pollution that are much closer together. We have major traffic routes that go through the city. And so those costs of pollution, any additional pollution has a much greater cost in terms of human health and environmental health. And in a study that was done in the 2013 State of Minnesota Public Utilities Commission report, they estimated that fine particulate pollution was, the externality cost of it was $792 per ton in rural areas and $6,291 a ton in urban areas, so almost 7 times the cost for fine particulates in terms of the cost. And then the third point I want to make is that there are immeasurable costs. The Minnesota Pollution Control Agency and the Minnesota Department of Health, their representatives here today, put together a report, and there's an estimated 2,000 deaths and 400 hospitalizations in the Twin Cities every year due to air pollution. And so how do you measure those costs of those 2,000 additional deaths? So one of the first changes that we're making with the ordinance is amending an existing boiler and furnace charge. We're looking at hundreds of small sources across the city of boilers and furnaces, and I should add that diesel generators are also in that mix. Across the city, you're changing the rate that we charge from 400,000 BTU units to 300,000 BTU units. And to give a reference of that, a residential house has about an 80,000 BTU unit capacity. And to give an example of how these changes might affect a business, if they had a $1.2 million furnace BTU capacity, we would be charging them 3 units before. For that 400,000 BTU capacity, we'll now be charging them 4 units. And then there'll be charges for larger sources of air pollution. One of the first changes that we wanted to make was that we are currently charging registration fees to businesses for putting in pollution control equipment. So businesses that put in VOC scrubbers, if they put in fine particulate scrubbers that make our air cleaner, previously we were charging, or currently we are charging a fee for those that equipment to go in. So with these changes, we'll no longer be charging. It'll be a zero-fee registration. We still want to know where those pieces of equipment are in Minneapolis, but we'll no longer be charging a fee for that. And then the second part is, instead of charging for the pollution control equipment, we're going to be charging for the pollution, how much pollution that they put out. $86 a ton for fine particulates, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and VOCs. And nitrogen oxide and VOCs, those are related to, as you may recall, we came very close to exceeding federal air quality standards. And those two chemicals combine to form ground level ozone, which contributes to that problem. There'll be a lesser charge for carbon monoxide, and then a greater charge. There's not a high volume of lead emissions in Minneapolis, but we want to create a disincentive for there to ever be a high volume of lead production. Along with these changes that we'll be charging to businesses, not only are we making these changes to benefit to be a cleaner, healthier city, but we also want them to be business friendly. So any business that comes forward with proactive projects, we built in exemptions to waive fees for the businesses that come forward with proactive projects that clean our air. There'll be a 10%, for any business that comes forward with a 10% reduction project over 500 pounds, it'll be a 2-year waive of emission fees. Any business that comes forward with a 25% of one emission category or 10% of all emission categories over 1 ton would be a 3-year waiving of fees. Any business that comes forward with a 25% of total emissions over 2 tons will be a 5-year waive of fees. And these, when you get into these categories, these are sort of stretch goals for a business. These would be really a great benefit to the city of Minneapolis to get these kinds of projects being done here. And then any business that could come forward with a 40% of total emissions over 4 tons would get a 10-year waive of all fees. And that would be quite a stretch for most businesses to come up with that kind of project, but we want that incentive to be there if they can. And then this goes along with, so those would be operational costs that the business would be able to use as an incentive. And then we also have capital costs with the Green Business Cost Share Program for projects up to $50,000, or we will cost share up to $50,000, up to a third of a project for capital costs. And in 2016, we'll be looking at energy assistance that relates to some of those boilers and furnace charges that I was talking about previously. So that's all I had. I want to thank Tom Frame, who did an amazing amount of work getting a lot of these registration fees together. Chakadi Moa, if he's still here someplace, who runs our pollution control program, Dan Huff for his leadership, Gretchen Musicant for letting us think outside the box and really come up with ways that we can think innovatively about these types of programs.